So the important thing to know for submitting paperwork is in order to do that, you do have to have the clients as contacts in your database, and you also have to create an opportunity, which is a transaction, essentially. So if you already have your contacts in, that's perfect. If you don't have the contact in yet, you can actually create it now at the same time as creating the opportunity. So it can all happen in the same process. So we're going to skip straight to how to create an opportunity, which involves going to this little handshake icon on the left-hand side. I'm going to go there, and then you're going to see this button at the top right that says Create Opportunity. Now, if you are on a team, you're going to see your team name here. So Michelle, this is important for you that it says Higgins McLeod team here. And then you're also going to see the assignees at the bottom, and that's how you're going to give different team members access to this opportunity. So Michelle, you may be, it's probably going to say Wayne is the owner here, and then you might be adding Connie as an assignee so that they can both access it. If you're an individual agent like everyone else here, you're not going to see anything in this team section. It's just going to be grayed out, as well as the owner field. So you don't need to fill anything out there. Market Center will already be pre-filled with Keller Williams Select Realty, so nothing to change there either. And the first thing that you're going to have to change is the opportunity type. Now there are 4 types. We only pay attention to the first 2 because we only do sales here. We don't do leases. So you're either creating a listing opportunity, someone selling their house, or a buyer opportunity, someone buying a house. Okay, I'm going to do buyer for this first example. And if you run into the case where you're representing the same clients, maybe you're helping them sell their house and then they're also buying a house, that's going to be 2 separate opportunities. So you're going to create the listing one first, sell their house, and then you're going to create a buyer one to do all the buyer paperwork because they are 2 separate transactions. Okay. Let's put our type as buyer. Another important thing about this field is you cannot change it once you save the opportunity. So if I choose buyer and it was supposed to be a listing, I'm just starting from scratch. We have to start over. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you choose the right one there. Then we have client. So this is where it's important that you do have the client as a contact because that's where it's going to pull the information from. So if I start typing my client's name in here, I can see no options come up. That means I don't have them in my database yet. So I can simply just click add new contact right here. If they were already in my database, the name would show up and it will pull all the info in from the contact section. But I'm going to click add new contact. And then it lets you fill in the email address and phone number. Email address is very important. If you do plan to send documents through DocuSign, you do need an email address in order to send those to. So I'm going to put an email address in here. Phone number you can fill in as well, but you can always go back and edit this contact later. Email address is the most important part for this process. Then you have co-buyer. So once we have our client in, you can add a second contact if there's 2 buyers on the transaction. So you'd want to add the second person there. One limitation with the system is it only lets you add 2. So if you run into a situation where you do have 3 buyers or 3 sellers, you can only add 2 of them. There's no way around that, unfortunately. So you're going to add the 2 main people, I would say. Like if there's a co-signer, add the 2 main clients and the co-signer can be put in later. When you get to DocuSign, you can still add them as a signer manually, even if they're not here on the opportunity. Then you have your opportunity name. So it's going to default to the name of the client and the type of opportunity that you're creating. So I have Joe Smith buyer. We do ask that you change this to the address of the property that they're buying or that they're selling if it's a listing, if you know it. With a buyer, it's a little bit harder. We're just completing our buyer agreement. We haven't actually gotten an accepted offer yet. So there's no actual property address yet. So I can leave this as is, just Joe Smith buyer, and I can always go back and change it. But if you do know the address, like you already have an accepted offer by the time you're putting this in, you can put the address in this field. That just helps our admin staff find it because once you submit the paperwork, we get it with the exact same name that appears here as the opportunity name. The rest of it here, we have some optional fields. There is custom tags. This is just a way you can sort of filter and group your transactions together. So if you're familiar with contacts, there are contact tags. These are tags for your opportunities or your transactions. So some common things people do in this tag section is they'll put the source of the transaction. So maybe you have a tag that says referral, so you can keep track of all of your transactions that were referred to you. Maybe you have tags if you work in multiple areas, maybe you work in Halifax and also the Annapolis Valley, you might tag them appropriately. So when you're looking at a full list of your transactions, you're able to see how many are coming from each area. So if you just think of any way or any information you'd like to easily see about your transactions, or kind of run a report to see how many transactions are coming from specific places, you can use this tags option to create them. Some other things people do, if you're on a sports team or you're in a book club or something like that, you could create that tag to keep track of how many deals are coming from those sources. I have the home show example. Maybe you had a booth in a home show and you want to keep track of any transactions that came from that type of marketing. Those are all different things that you can use for these tags. Again, they're optional. You don't have to use them, but it's there for your own organization. Estimated close date is next. This is something you don't know until you have an accepted offer. It is an important one to fill out if you have an accepted offer, because it's how our brokers are reviewing files. They're sorting by the estimated close date. So if you do know what the closing date is going to be, please fill that in. Don't just guess, don't put a date in that you think they're going to want to close. Wait until you have that accepted offer to fill this in. Okay, so you can just leave it blank if you don't. Time frame and budget are optional fields. You don't have to fill these in, but again, they're for your own organization. So it lets you keep track of how far out this buyer wants to buy. Maybe it's in the next month, maybe it's 12 months from now. You can also put other and put a specific time frame. Budget is exactly what it sounds like. You're putting in their sort of max budget that they're looking for. This is just for you to keep track, essentially. Then you have commission rate, which is a required field. And this is where you're going to put your half of the commission. So if you're getting 2% or 2.5%, that's what you're going to fill in there. You don't want to put the total amount, like if you're on the listing side and you're doing 5%, 2.5 to each side, you don't want to put 5 in here. You want to put just your half. The reason for that, and it doesn't affect anything on the office side or with the paperwork, is if you look when you're in this opportunity section, just behind the window that I'm in, there is this potential income that it's calculating on the right, and it's going to use the budget and the commission rate to calculate that number. So that's what that's for. Again, it's not going to affect anything on our side. So if you put 2.5 and you only end up getting 2, if you don't change it, it's just mucking up your own numbers. It doesn't change anything for us.
Jessica?
Yeah.
What if it's a flat rate and not a percentage? Like, I guess
you have to figure out what the percentage is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if it's, a flat rate of $1,000 and the price or the budget is $500,000, figure out what that flat rate is a percentage. And
okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Awesome. Thanks.
No option for flat rate.
All right.
But again, the trade record sheet that you complete with your deal, that's the most important, that's all accurate, because that's what we actually look at. This is just to calculate that potential and probable income you're seeing. So if you want that to be accurate, that's what you'd have to do, is essentially calculate the percentage that you're getting.
Great.
If this was a listing, the budget would just say listing price. That's the only difference there. And then we have phase and stage. So this is in reference to the pipeline that you're also seeing behind the window. So this is where you can keep track of all your transactions. We don't dive too much into that in this training, but I do usually do a separate training on organizing all of your transactions. So you do have 2 pipelines, both for listings and buyers, and it separates it into phases. So you can keep track of where that transaction is in the life cycle of a transaction. So, have you just had an appointment with them? Is it an active buyer, an active listing? Are you under contract? Those are things you can keep track of. Again, optional to use that. You don't have to, but it is there for you to keep yourself organized. The stage is in reference within each phase. You can break it down into stages. You can customize this just to keep track of your own workflow. So if you're not using the pipeline for organization, like I said, whole different training, you can ignore that. But if you are, you can choose the phase and the stage here. Okay. Once you have everything filled out, that's when you're going to click on create here. But I'm just going to quickly cancel this and go through as if I was just coming in, doing it from scratch without explaining it, because it seems like it's a lot to do when I sit here explaining it for 5 minutes. But it really takes like 20 seconds to put in. So create opportunity, and take the team out of there. We're doing a buyer. My client is Joe Smith. Don't have him, so I'm going to add him. Leave my opportunity name like that. I'm getting 2%, let's say. And that's it. Now I'm going to click create. So that was maybe 10 seconds to actually fill in that information. Okay. Once you create it, it brings you into the details of that opportunity. And you can see at the bottom right, it's also telling you that it also created a new contact for Joe Smith. So now this person's in my database and I have my transaction created. Now this is something, if you're thinking of the timeline of when you would actually do this, I've always trained people to just, do it when you have paperwork to submit, but the system is set up so that you can do this as soon as someone expresses an interest in working with you. So as soon as you get a call from a buyer lead who might want to go look at houses, create this. It reminds you that you have a potential piece of business there, and it saves you from having to do it when you're writing offers and trying to get all your paperwork organized. You don't even have to worry about this. It's already done. Okay. If something happens and it doesn't work out, you can always archive the opportunity. You can mark it as a lost opportunity. There's ways to get it out of your pipeline. But I always err on the side of do as much in advance as you can when you're a bit slower. And then once you get busy with them, it's already done. Okay. You can also do it when you have paperwork to submit. Either way, it works. But that's the way I recommend doing it, just to keep yourself organized. Okay. Any questions about creating the opportunity? No? All good there. So from this details tab, you're going to see down below all the key information is here that we put in, the contact's name, that it's a buyer, the opportunity name is there. If you ever need to change anything, this is where you're going to do it. So you'll see we have the little pencil icon. That's going to bring up this field. It has a lot more fields that you can fill in now that we've created it. But the gist is the same. So the opportunity name is up here. Maybe now I know that Joe Smith is buying 789 Main Street. I'm going to put the address in there. Okay. Maybe now I also know that we're going to close on September 15th. I can fill that in. There's a lot of other dates you can fill in, which again are all for your own organization. So if you want to keep track of your appointment dates, the contract date, inspection date, all of that can be done in here. Okay. With your listing, there's even more fields. There's like photographer date. There's a whole bunch more that you can keep track of. Again, completely optional. Just wanted to point it out so you know that it's there. So I'm going to click save here to make those changes. And now you can see up here, it has changed the name of that opportunity. Okay. Before I move on to the paperwork part of it, I just want to show you, once you have this opportunity created, how do you actually find it? So let's say I did this ahead of time, and now 2 weeks later, I'm actually writing an offer. If I'm on my home screen of Command, there's, I would say two or three main different ways that you can find it. The easiest way is actually going to be going into your contacts and opening that client. So if I go to my contacts and I search for Joe Smith, which we just created 3 minutes ago, and I open up that contact, you can see here under opportunities, I have one and it's right there. Okay, that's going to be the easiest way, especially once you have a ton of opportunities in there, instead of having to search through all of them, just go straight to the contact. Okay, you can also create opportunities from here. So if you already have the contact in, maybe this is a listing and now he's buying a house, I can click create and it's the exact same process, just a different spot to do it. Okay. Another way to find it is if you go to your opportunities, you can go into your pipeline. So if you know which phase that you have that in, I think I put it into my buyer cultivate. I can click on that, scroll through, and we have 789 Main Street right here. Okay. The third way is, again, from this screen, when you first get to your opportunities, there is an all opportunities button. And it's just going to give you a list of every opportunity you've ever created. Okay, so from here you can search. You can scroll through if you don't have a lot of them. But those are the different ways to actually get back to that opportunity once you have created it. Make sense? Perfect. This is not the right one. How many 789 Main Streets do I have? Let's see. We'll search by opportunity. I have a lot of 789 Main Streets. All right. I'm thinking it's this one. Yeah, this is what I did. That's where I say going to the contact is sometimes the easiest because you're going to find that specific one that you're looking for. So that's good. So next we go to the documents tab. And this is where the paperwork side of it starts. So like I said, you can have all of that process done long before you even are signing a buyer agreement. You can do it all ahead of time. So when you come into documents, the first thing you're going to want to do is on the left-hand side, you're going to see this pick checklist type. You can see right now it says to work with opportunity, select your checklist type first. So that's what we're going to do. With a buyer, you're really going to choose standard. There's a few other scenarios. Michelle, you're always going to choose PEI because you're in PEI. Who else do we have here? Yeah, you're the only PEI person here. So if you are in PEI and watching the recording of this, you're always going to choose PEI. For all our Nova Scotia agents, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was late because I'm at work and sneaking into this meeting was in another, but listen, I missed the beginning. But I noticed right now, when you just put checklist type, you have referral there. Can I use this opportunity section for a referral that I have given another agent?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
So I'm about to run through the types. So yes, referral is there. So that's essentially, if I click on that, you're going to see all it is asking for the listing cut from Paragon of that listing and the referral form that either you sent or you received. Actually, this will be when you send a referral, because when we get a check that says it's for Angela, we don't know what it's for, right? So the referral form is what tells us, what transaction it's for, why you're getting it. So we're able to pay you. So you can definitely do that. You can also just email it to sales. If you send it this way, they're just going to print it and put it in their little file folder. So you can do it this way, or you can send it in just directly by email. Totally up to you.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So that's referral. Commercial, you'll never choose. That's for our commercial advisors team. Even if you happen to get into a commercial transaction, you're still going to choose standard if you're in Nova Scotia. The only other one you might choose in Nova Scotia is the FSBO, or for sale by owner. And that's if your buyers are purchasing a house that's not listed on the market because it's from Kijiji, or the for sale by owner sign is in the lawn. There are other pieces of paperwork that you have to complete. And so the checklist is a little bit different. So if it ends up being a for sale by owner, I would just click on that and it's going to change the checklist here. But for the majority of you, you're going to choose standard. And so once you pick that checklist, it's going to create 3 checklists, as we call them, just down below here. So you have consultation, under contract, and closed. So consultation is your agency documents, essentially. So if we look over here on the right, we have a list of different documents that you may or may not need to submit to the office. You'll see a requirement column here. Some are marked required, some are conditional. If it says required, that means that it's always required. If it says conditional, it means if it exists, then we need it. So if there is a power of attorney for one of your clients, then you need to upload it. If there's not, then you don't. So that's what the conditional means. And it also, the required is mostly just to tell you what is going to be needed to complete this file. It's not going to prevent you from submitting anything if you haven't uploaded a required document. For example, there's 2 FinTracks. You might have 1 client, so one of these required FinTrack fields is going to be blank. It's not going to prevent you from submitting them. Okay. So yeah, that's the main documents that you need on the agency side of it. Now, how do you actually put those documents in? It depends on where you're at with those documents. So the example I'm about to run through is if you filled out your documents in web forms, but you haven't actually sent them to anyone for signature, you need to send them to the clients for signature. Okay. So this is this, I call it the streamlined process for using DocuSign through command. You're always going to see this start a transaction button up here at the top right. And when I click that, you're going to see it's going to open a new tab here, and it's going to bring me into DocuSign. Now there's going to be different methods from this point on, depending on how you get your paperwork signed, which way you use DocuSign, if you use another signature program. But this is the streamlined way, like I said, through command, and we'll run through a couple of those other methods after. Okay. So this has created what's called a DocuSign room. So you can see up at the top, it says DocuSign rooms. So we're in a room, which is a fancy word for folder for this transaction. This folder directly corresponds with the opportunity we created in command. So you can see it automatically named it 789 Main Street, which if I look at my opportunity, that's the exact same name. So these two systems are now connected and talking to each other, which is nice. And so if I just move my Zoom out of the way, I can upload documents directly in here, but I can also just go straight to envelopes, which is how you send documents for signature. So the best way to remember this is can't put paper in a mailbox and send it. If you're sending it in the mail, you have to put it in an envelope in order to send it. It's the best real life example I can give. But every time you're sending paperwork to someone to sign, you're going to be creating a new envelope. So you may have 10 envelopes by the time this transaction closes, because every time you're sending a piece of paperwork, you're creating an envelope. Does that make sense? Okay. Once the envelope is in the mail, you can't get it back and add more paper. You're sending another envelope. So if I send my buyer agreement and my working with a realtor, and then tomorrow I need to amend that buyer agreement, I'm sending another envelope for that amendment. Okay. You can also think of it like you're sending an email. An envelope is an email. So I'm going to click on new here at the top to create a new envelope. And the first step here is to add your documents. So like I said, you're going to fill out your documents using web forms. Everything will be filled in. The only thing that you can't do in web forms is physically sign the paper. So once you have everything filled in, you're going to save your documents as PDFs out of web forms. We can go through that after if anyone's unfamiliar with that process. But essentially you'll have PDFs on your computer of the documents that you need to get signed. So I'm going to click on upload right here, and I'm going to browse my computer. And we have a buyer. So I'm going to upload my buyer designated and my working with a realtor. Okay. This may not be the order you do things, that's fine. Make sure it's compliant, that's all I can say. But upload the paper that you need to sign at this moment. So these are two documents I've filled out in web forms, downloaded, and I've now added to this envelope. Then we need to add our recipients. So who needs to sign the paperwork? I'm going to click on add recipient, but I'm going to click the little arrow that's on this button. And I'm going to click add from contacts. The nice thing about doing this from command is that when I click on room contacts, you're going to see it's pulling my client's information as buyer 1 and my information as buyer agent 1. So I don't need to enter their information again to send this paperwork. It's pulling the contact information from command. So I'm just going to select who needs to sign these and apply selected. That's our email, so I'm going to fix that. And now you can see it's filled in those people who need to sign. If there's another person that needs to sign, so like I mentioned, you can only add 2 clients to your opportunity. If you had a third client who also needs to sign, you're just going to click add recipient, and now you can manually add another sign.
A quick question, Jessica.
Yeah.
What if two person have the same email address? Is this gonna work through DocuSign as well, or?
So that's where command gets a little tricky because you can't add 2 contacts with the same email. So you
Okay.
would be coming in and manually adding them. So let's say Jane Smith, they share this email address. I can do that from here. You just can't add them both to the opportunity in command.
Okay, so I would do it manually, okay.
Yeah, if you're doing that, I do recommend, so you'll see at the top, there's this checkbox to set the signing order. If I check that, it's made me as the agent number 1, then Joe is number 2, and then Jane is number 3. So they don't get 2 emails to sign it at the exact same time. It's going to separate it. So this means once I
Right.
sign, Joe gets an email to sign. And then once Joe signs, Jane gets an email to sign. So we don't
Perfect.
all 3 get it at once. If you have 2 people sharing the same email address, that can get kind of tricky. So you may just want to tell them you're going to get an email. Joe needs to sign first, and then once Joe signs, Jane can sign. It's just kind of
Makes sense.
difference. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is also helpful setting the signing order. If there's a specific order you want people to receive things, you can add people to receive a copy as well. You can change their role here. So this is helpful. Maybe you want, the lawyer to receive this document once it's signed, and you are going to be out for the day and you don't want to have to remember to go and send it to them. You could add the lawyer's information here and just set it to receives a copy as the last number. So once Jane signs, you get it completed and the lawyer gets it completed. It's just one scenario. There may be others, but it just depends. Just think that, if you do it this way, you're not getting a chance to review it before it gets sent to this person. So if it's something that, is going to be fine and can just be sent to them automatically, you can do this. If you want to review it first, I wouldn't do this because they're going to receive it right away. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that. Let me just delete that one. So that's how you add your recipients. And the last section here is the message. So this is the subject of the email that the people who are signing are going to receive. And you can also write a message to them. So a lot of people will want to write a message, here are the documents as discussed. Let me know if you have any questions, something like that. But the subject is important. I do highly recommend you put the subject or put whatever documents are in this envelope as the subject. So I might change this to buyer documents. As I'm typing, you can see up here at the top left, it's changing the name of this envelope. So instead of just every envelope being called please DocuSign, that's going to be a nightmare when you're looking through trying to find a specific one. I now know that this envelope has my buyer documents in it. If it was an amendment, I would name it amendment. Agreement of purchase and sale, same thing, just so you're able to keep track of it a little easier. And on the client side, they're getting an email that says, please DocuSign your buyer documents. It doesn't just say, please DocuSign. Okay, so your subject and message is there, and everything on this screen is now complete. So I'm going to click on next at the bottom right, which is going to bring you in to this view where you can see all of the documents that you've added to this envelope. You also get sort of a preview on the right. So I have these 2 documents. I can expand that to see all of the pages. And because I filled everything out in web forms, all I'm doing on this is adding initials and signatures where they need to go. So you'll see on the left, we have the signature, initial, and date are the first 3 standard fields that you see here. Also important to note is just above that, there is a dropdown with the person's name. So you want to make sure you're assigning the signature and initial spots to the person who actually needs to sign in that spot. If I was just to add this initial here, that's telling me as the agent I need to sign here, but I don't need to sign here or initial here. So I'm going to switch that to my client, Joe, and I'm just going to click on initial and then click to drop it in that spot. Okay. As I scroll through, I'm going to do the same thing, initial, that. And then the last page here, it's actually a signature. So I'm going to click on signature and drop it. You can resize it. Sometimes it's very big and it covers all the words, so you can make it smaller to fit. The important thing with signatures is there is a date field, and it's not going to automatically date it unless you add this date signed on that one. That's going to populate as soon as Joe Smith comes in and clicks the sign button, it's going to put the date and the time that he did that. Okay. Now me as the agent also needs to sign down here. So I'm just going to come up on the left, switch that to me, and do the same thing. Signature, it will usually also maintain the size that you've changed that field to, which is nice. And then put date signed here.
Jess, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I just recently did a transaction and the date signed, I had it on for two different people's signature, and one of them it put down the date as Pacific time, and the other one it put down as our Atlantic time.
Okay.
Why would that be?
So there is something in your preferences that you can change for that. So I will show you. You can set it to just be whatever time zone their computer's in. If they don't have a DocuSign account, sometimes it will just default to Pacific.
Yeah,
So I'll show
I mean,
you how to do that.
Christina said it didn't matter, but I don't know, it was
Technically,
just
it doesn't.
confusing.
I mean, they should be able to know that, that's 4 hours ahead. They signed at this time.
Yeah,
our time, but for convenience, it is nice to have it all the same. So I will show
Yeah.
you once we get through this, how to change that.
Okay, thank
I have
you.
a question as well, just.
Yeah.
So I'm in the transition too, so I didn't put date sign, so I did send the other completion, what's that called, with timestamped everything?
The
And-
certificate.
Yes, so the seller's realtor is good with it. Would that be a problem in the future for the command?
No,
Is there-
no, you'll just need to add that with your file.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good segue. If you do forget to add the date signed, it does generate a certificate once everything is signed with this people's names and the date stamp and timestamp of when they signed it. So I'll show you where to find that. Let's see that. Some other nice things in here. You'll see over on the left, there is the pre-fill tools. There is a line. So if you ever need to strike out something, you can do that. Always make sure to initial as well, but that is an option. There's also text boxes here. So if there's anything, that you forgot to add in web forms, I could add a text box and write it in here before it gets sent to them for signature. Okay, so just know that that's an option if something doesn't get filled out in web forms. Sometimes web forms does a nice, really fun thing where you'll fill everything out and you'll download it, and one field's just blank and it will not fill it in no matter how many times you download it. So always good to double check and read through your documents before you send them to make sure all the fields you put in web forms are actually there. And if they're not, you can use these text boxes to fix that. An important note about the text boxes is right now you can see it's yellow. So that's assigned to me, which is how you want it. Over on the right, you can see I can change the recipient of that field. So if this was showing up as blue, that means when Joe comes in to sign, he could change every single thing I wrote, which you don't want that to happen. So if you're adding text boxes to your contracts, make sure that it matches the color of your signatures. Okay. Read it. Yeah, so that's that one. Oh, we also need to initial here, and we will sign here and date. Okay. So now that's all done. You can scroll through and make sure that you've added signatures and initials everywhere they need to be. But also on that preview on the right-hand side, you're going to see a little sort of post-it note looking thing with the color. So you can kind of scroll through and see, okay, the blue, which is Joe, he's on every single page. Maybe you know that, maybe this one has nothing on it and you know that he needs to initial that page, you know that you missed one there. So just kind of gives you that at a glance. So yeah, that's adding signatures and initials. Once you've done that, you're going to click on send. The way I set this up is that it gets sent to me to sign first. So Joe's not receiving this until I actually sign it. So when you send it and come back to your envelopes, it's going to say needs my signature right away. So I can click on this and do my signature. Continue. Finish. So now that's done. And I just got an email as the client to sign on that side. So I'm just going to finish that so that it completes. You'll see here now it's waiting for others. So you know that you've done everything you need to do and you're just waiting for the client to sign this. Just go through quickly. That. And finish. So I've now signed as the client. If I refresh this, it says completed. So now I know that I've signed, the clients have signed, and these documents are complete. Once that happens, you're going to get an email that says completed with all of the signed documents attached. So you have those if you easily need to send them to the lawyer or save them to your computer. You can do it from there. And the client also receives an email with all of the signed documents attached. Okay, so that saves you from having to send it to them. Okay. So if I go back to my documents tab in this DocuSign room, you're going to see a few different documents. It's all the ones that we've added, but you're seeing the originals, which has this little red PDF, and you're seeing the signed version. So that's an important thing to pay attention to. You're going to have the original unsigned ones and the signed ones in the same spot. Okay. The certificate that we were just referring to also shows up here. So that's this document. So every envelope that you complete will have a certification with it. Now, this is important. If you forget to add the date signed, you can see here it tells me the signers, so me and Joe Smith, when it was sent, when we viewed it, and when we signed it. Okay. So if you do ever forget to add the date signed, this is something you'll need to include with your paperwork. Okay. Any questions about this process with DocuSign? No? Okay. So our paperwork's complete. Now all we have left is to send it to the office. So I'm going to go back to command. And now you're going to see that we have our list of documents, but it's no longer prompting me to upload or manually browse for the document. It's set here to attach files from DocuSign. So now those documents are in my DocuSign room. I can just come to this list and assign them to each placeholder. So my buyer designated is the first one. I'm going to click on the drop down. Oh, I need to refresh it. One moment. I'm going to click on the drop down, and then you're going to see all the documents that are in that DocuSign room. This is where it's important that you're paying attention to the one that is signed and that is not. So we have buyer designated brokerage agreement, and then we have buyer designated brokerage agreement signed. So it's always a signed one that you want to add. So I'm going to click that. And now this document is uploaded. I didn't need to download it out of DocuSign, save it on my computer, and then upload to command. It can just pull directly from DocuSign. Working with a realtor, same thing. Like that. And then if there's nothing else I need to add, maybe I don't have the FinTrax done yet, I have nothing else to put in there yet, I can click Submit to MC. This button is very important. It is like the send button on an email. If you don't hit submit, we don't get it. We're not going to see it. Okay. It's also important to know that you can continue working on this file. If you're not ready to submit it to us yet, maybe you're waiting for the FinTrax to come back, you can just leave it here. The status is showing as open here and here, so you know that it hasn't been submitted yet. And then once you have everything ready, you can click submit. Just don't forget to click submit. So I'll click submit to MC. It says, are you sure? Yeah. All right.
Sorry, just a quick question again.
Yeah.
Do I have to wait that I have many documents ready at the same time, or can I just send them in as they come?
Depends on what documents it is. Like if, you have everything except for the FinTrax, you can still submit this and add the FinTrax later. Or if you have accepted offer and you don't have the trade record sheet done or any of the other documents done yet, you can still submit that. I would say if you have FinTrax, but you don't have the other documents yet, we can't do anything with it until at least you have those agreements. So that would be the main thing. As long as you have those main agreements for whether it's a listing or a buyer, then you can submit them sort of one by one. It's not going to affect anything.
Thank you.
So I'm going to click submit, and now you can see the status is submitted. I'm going to go on the office side and just click some buttons so you can see what it looks like when they actually review it. I'm going to refresh this. I just got a notification on my phone that my compliance event was returned. I don't know if you can see that. So if you have the command app, you will get notified as things happen for your file. It will also show up here on your bell icon. You can see my compliance event for 789 Main Street has been returned. You can click view opportunity and it will bring you directly into that page. Do that and it'll just refresh it here. And so now it looks a little bit different. It no longer says submitted here, it says returned. And as you scroll through the documents, you're going to see some things have changed. So our working with a realtor now says returned over here instead of uploaded. And our FinTrack says missing. So as you submit things, the office is going to tell you what's still outstanding for that file and if there's anything that you need to fix. This review is not the be all end all. You may 2 weeks later get another review because the brokers are going to come in and look at it. But we have a good idea of what they're going to be looking for to complete a file. So the main things you're going to kind of get out of the way right away, which is nice. So if something says returned, you're going to see a little red speech bubble right next to the document name where we have left a note telling you what needs to be fixed. So the working with a realtor here, it says it's missing signatures when I hover over that. So you can see here, I didn't upload the one that said signed. I just uploaded working with the real estate industry. So now I need to replace it with the one that is signed, which I simply just click these little 3 dots right beside it. Click update. And I'm going to find the working with the real estate industry signed. Click update. And now you can see it no longer says returned, it says updated, and I've replaced that document with the correct one. If I click on this document, you're going to see the version history here. So it does not remove the rejected document. For compliance, everything stays there. So just know that once you do submit something, there is a paper trail of it. It's just important to know. You cannot delete a document once it's been submitted. You can only overwrite it. Okay. The other document here is the FinTrack, which is missing, but I don't have that in my DocuSign. I use the FinTracker app, let's say. So I just have it as a PDF that I need to upload. So I'm going to come up to where this says attach files from DocuSign, and I'm just going to switch it to my computer, which will now allow me to just browse my computer for wherever that document is.
Sorry, Jess, just got a quick question.
Yeah.
That working with the realtor that you just updated, do you have to resubmit it to
Yeah.
MC or is it? Okay, so you have to press that. Okay.
Yeah. So once you've fixed everything, let me just put my FinTrack in there. I've added the FinTrack, so that's uploaded, and you may not be able to fix all the things. You may not have, the second FinTrack yet if both are marked missing. You can still fix some of it and resubmit. You might just get it re-returned to you to remind you that there's still stuff you need to add there. But you can fix everything that you can fix, and then you're going to click on resubmit to MC. Okay.
I have a question as well.
Yeah.
So I got counter offer and then we signed it. It was handwritten and then they sent another counter with some other changes. So there's just one space to put the counter offer. So if I'll update it, the other one would be gone. So do I need to keep both?
So what you'll actually do, I'll run through that in a second. You can add additional documents that aren't in the list so that you don't have to overwrite it. So I will show you how to do that. Okay. So I'm going to resubmit this one just to get it out of the way. And now the status is resubmitted. And let's say now I have my accepted offer with this buyer. I don't have to create a new opportunity. We're just going to click on under contract on the left. So everything for this transaction is going to stay in this one place. Our consultation is our agency, and our under contract will be our agreement. Okay. So I'm going to switch this to my computer because we made an offer, they accepted it and sent it back. I don't have it in DocuSign, the completed version anyways. I have it as a PDF that the listing agent sent me. So I'm just going to click on browse and find my agreement of purchase and sale. And I'm going to do browse and upload my counteroffer. Now to your question, if again, you have another counteroffer that doesn't replace this one, both ones need to be seen. you can click on the 3 dots up next to where you're attaching the files. Oh, there we go, and click add document. So it might be counter number 2. Document type, none of these are really relevant. I always just click the first one. It really doesn't change anything. Just choose one of them. And then you're going to browse for that counteroffer that you also want to add and click save. And so it just adds it as an additional document down at the bottom. Okay. So when our sales deal coordinators are looking through this, usually it's Lynn that's coming in, she's going to scroll through the whole thing. So even though it's at the bottom, she's still going to see it. We always check all the way through just to make sure. Now at this point, we have our agreement of purchase and sale, we have our counteroffer. We might not have our trade record sheet done yet. You can still submit this even if you haven't completed it yet. There's some other required things that you're not going to have till later on in the transaction. So the sold cut, that's referring to the listing cut in Paragon where the status no longer says active, it says sold. So once the deal has gone firm, you would upload the sold cut. Okay. Copy of deposit. You're not going to have a copy of deposit until the deposit's been paid. And so that might be 2 weeks from now. So when you submit this, you are going to get it back with all of these things and anything relevant to this transaction marked as missing. Don't panic. We're just creating your checklist, essentially. So we know you don't have the sold cut yet because it's not sold, but we've marked it missing so that you know when you go into that transaction or this opportunity and you're looking through it that you still have that outstanding. Okay. We'll mark other things missing if they're written into your deal, like taxes or power bills or the PDS. If they're part of that transaction, we're going to mark it missing. Okay. That add document is helpful for anything else. So if there's any other documents that you need to add to this file that aren't in this checklist, you can add them. Again, that goes for, we have 2 amendment spots. You may have more than 2 amendments over the life of this transaction. And so once you fill in those 2 spots, you're just adding an additional document each time. We've just tried to make this as minimal as we can. So it's not super overwhelming when you come in and you have the ability to add extra documents as needed. Okay. Again, you have to click submit to MC. So once you have your agreement and your counteroffer added, click submit and submit. Each checklist needs to be submitted. Okay. Any questions about that process?
I just had a quick question. How would you go about deleting an opportunity?
You can't delete, but you can archive.
Okay.
So if I go, I think I can do it from here. I can't do it from here. From that all opportunities view, when you go to that list, there's the 3 dots. You'll see this kind of reoccurring through command. You'll be able to click 3 dots next to that opportunity name and click archive.
Okay.
It won't ever fully delete it because the paperwork needs to exist somewhere, especially if there's paperwork in there. And it leaves it in your archive transactions so that you can bring it back if you need to. So let's say, you know, you and the buyer stop working together and then a year later the buyer comes back, you could, you know, bring it back.
Sounds good.
Think of the word.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's our under contract. Closed, you'll really never need to do anything in. You're really only going to pay attention to the first 2 because closed is the office's side of the file. So that's where you're going to, or we're going to upload the commission statement that we sent to the lawyer and a copy of the commission check that we received from the lawyer. So you'll never need to add anything in here. You're just going to see us doing stuff. Okay. What else here? The messaging is important. So you'll always see this add comment button. That is how you communicate with the office and how we're going to communicate with you. So if I click on add comment, you're going to see this chat box come up. And so you could send a message. Let's say Lynn is the one who's doing your file. I can type at Lynn. You know, this deal is firm, for example. Anything that you want to make sure we see, please tag us in your message using this @ symbol It also reminds you at the top here, because I could just send this message without tagging Lynn, and she's just gonna have to, you know, come into this opportunity at some point and find it. She won't see it unless you tag her, because then we're gonna get a notification in here that you've tagged us in a message and there's something for us to see. Okay, so we'll always tag you in our messages. We'll always do that so that you get a notification when we send you something. Just please tag us when you're messaging back so we see your reply. Otherwise, we're not going to see it. We can see it, but we have to be, you know, mentally triggered somehow to come in and look at it. Okay. Any questions about that process?
Just when we want to tag someone, so generally that would be Lynn for the like the finance side.
Yeah,
are there-
so for a
Oh.
listing, if you have a new listing that you're getting put in, that's always going to be Alicia.
Okay,
So we have Alicia here. For a sale, if it's anything about the under contract section, I would say your safest bet is to tag Lynn. Let Alicia
Okay.
be your two main ones. You may get messages from time to time from Joy or from Hillary, and then just reply to the person who sent you the message. But Lynn is the one who goes in every day and is reviewing the paperwork and putting it into our accounting system. So typically that initial review, once you've submitted something, is going to be Lynn, and she's in there most often of all of them. So Lynn's
Awesome.
your safest bet. If you ask Lynn a question and it's for Hillary, for example, she's just going to tag Hillary and Hillary will go reply. So we all work pretty close together. So I would say those are your two safest bets for tagging, would be Alicia for listings and Lynn for sales. Now that would also be Lynn if it's a listing, but it's about the offer. If it's anything in that under contract section, that is for Lynn.
thank you.
Yeah. So if this was a listing opportunity, this would say listed instead of consultation, and it's your listing paperwork in there. So it's your seller designated brokerage agreement. You're working with a realtor, your input form, and it's Alicia who's doing that. Then the same thing, once you have an accepted offer, you click on under contract and you add the agreement of purchase and sale. Okay. One important thing actually I didn't go over is what if this deal terminates and you have a new one to submit? We don't have to create a new opportunity. The consultation stays the same because it's still the same buyers, whether they're buying 123 Main Street or 789 Main Street. Just so happened that they tried to buy 789 Main Street and it's now terminated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the termination and upload that document. It's not termination, but we'll pretend it is. And then submit that, and that's done. But now your buyers have bought 123 Main Street, for example. We're going to stay in this under contract. And we're going to click this under contract that you see here with the little down arrow. And you're going to see add version. It's going to name it under contract version 2. You could change it if you want. Totally up to you, however you want to keep it organized. And click create new version. And just pay attention on the right here where the documents are attached. When I click create new version, it's now blank. So I can now upload the agreement of purchase and sale, everything for 123 Main Street. But I can always go back to my original under contract and see the old one. So again, nothing ever gets erased. You just kind of add new versions of it. So now under contract version 2, that's going to be everything for the new deal, but I don't have to re-upload anything for the buyers because that hasn't changed. Still the same BDBA, same FinTrack, same everything. Okay, so it just keeps it nice and clean. It is important too, once that changes, that you go back and change the name of the opportunity to the new address. So I'll go back to details, hit my pencil, and now this is 123 Main Street. Okay, that is a question I get a lot. We get a lot of, new opportunities for just the deal side of it. And we're like, nope, please go back and redo that in the correct opportunity. So just something to keep in mind if you do have that happen. Same thing with a listing. If you have all your listing paperwork in there, the deal is separate. So if the first buyers terminate, you're just going to add a new version and add the new deal for the new buyers of your listing. So same process, just a little bit different there. And that's mostly it on this side. There were a couple questions as we went through how to archive an opportunity. So if I go back to my opportunities here, I'll go to my pipeline. I can do it from here. So we have 123 Main Street. I can click on the 3 dots and just click archive opportunity. That's going to archive it. If I ever need to go back and find it, you're only going to find it under all opportunities. And you have to filter to include archived opportunities. They're not going to show up right away. Apply that filter, and now I'll be able to search opportunity 123 Main Street. I use that a lot, obviously, but you'll be able to find the archived one that way. Okay. The other question was, I believe, time zones. So if I go back to my DocuSign here, I'm going to click on my initials at the top and go to preferences. This is wrong. One second. Maybe it's profile. I'll never keep those straight. Yeah, okay, so that's how it was. So when you go to your initials, you go to manage profile, and then language and region, and then you can update your regional settings to match my computer's time zone, or you can set a specific time zone. Okay, if you always want it to show as Atlantic, even if you go to BC, then you would just do match my time zone setting, so that doesn't change with your computer. Okay. When it shows, if it's still showing up as Pacific time for the clients, it's because they have a DocuSign account and that's how theirs is set up. So you just have to instruct them to change their time zone settings, unfortunately. But yeah, the certificate will help with that. It will show, I believe, the actual time zone for you. So you can always use that as well. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else you guys want to see? I did mention there was a few other methods of doing the paperwork submission. Really, the only thing that's different is, let's see, oh, I archived that one. I'll just go to this one. If you were not doing start a transaction, maybe you just went to DocuSign.com and sent paperwork for signature, and now you have signed paperwork. You just skip the start a transaction. You would just manually upload those documents. Okay, so that's the same if you met them in person, signed by hand, and scanned them to yourself. Or if you use a different signature program like Dotloop or Authentisign or DocuSign just by going to DocuSign.com. That part doesn't connect to command, it only connects if you start a transaction. So there's going to be times where you have paperwork that didn't go through that process where you can't attach files from DocuSign. That's going to be the main difference. You're just going to use that manual browse. Okay. Cool. No other questions? If not, that's all I got for you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I did record this, so I'll put it up on our YouTube and you guys can watch it back if you need to. And if you have any questions as you're submitting paperwork, just let me know. Perfect. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really
Thank you.
helpful.
Perfect. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
Bye.